Hello! Welcome to the third tutorial on BlenderBasics.com, the official website of the Blender for Dummies book. I'm Jason Van Gumster, the author of that book, and the goofy guy that's going to be showing you some more cool stuff in Blender. What I'm going to be showing you this time is actually part of the release candidate for Blender 249. This is a new version of Blender coming out and has a number of really cool features in it. One of them is really helpful for rigging, and it's called etch-a-ton, or bone sketching. It's written by Martin Poirier. Please forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Martin, or Thief in the Blender community. And it's about 17 different kinds of awesome. I'll put a link to this page here where you can download the release candidate for Blender. But it works like this. First thing I need to do, of course, is give myself some geometry to actually try and rig. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of my transform manipulator here, and I'm going to tab into edit mode and turn on backface culling, and I'm going to go into face select, also do that with control tab, and I'm going to right click this one, and I'm just going to extrude this out and give myself a nice arbitrary shape to play with. So to do that, it's just control left click. You can also extrude by pressing E, but for drawing like this, control left clicking tends to work much faster. So just continuing here, let's grab you and pull you over a little bit. I'm going to control left click a little bit like so. Let's pull you. Ooh, that's an ugly deformation there. We want to keep some sort of volume there, don't we? And let's have a little fun with this. Let's pull this down under itself. Now you may typically, if you're rigging if you're modeling a character, you're hopefully not ever really going to create anything that looks quite like this, simply because it can look really hideous and be really one, it's really hideous, and two, it can be really difficult to rig. But there are occasions where you end up doing something like this, and let's see, I'm going to alt right click this loop and grab to pull it down just a little bit so it's not so funky. It's a little cleaner. Actually, let me switch over to vertex select, alt right click that. If I rotate there we go. Much better. So we have our arbitrary shape that we want to rig, and this could be a mess for us. Fortunately, because of bone sketching, it's a lot easier now, and I'll show you exactly how. So adding an armature, you're going to do it the same way you normally do. Space, add, armature, because you still need an armature. And it's added, you can't see it because it's blocked by the geometry, but if I hit X-ray, you'll see that the bone lives right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab into edit mode on this armature, select this bone because I don't need it right now, and just delete it. So now I have an empty armature, no bones. And what I want to do is I want to start rigging. Now, typically you would just do add bone, and then you would extrude that bone all the way out and get your rig set up that way. However, with bone sketching it's much easier, and you do that by going to bone sketching, or you press the hotkey P. Now that you're in bone sketching, you have to forgive the artifacts here. That's one of those things that happens when you're still dealing with some beta-ness in here. I think there's something going weird with this panel. At any rate, to enable bone sketching, you click there, and now you're enabling bone sketching. Bone sketching works like this. Let me get rid of those artifacts. Alright, bone sketching works like this. I'm going to shift this over so you can see it. You can do strokes by just left click and dragging, and it gives you a stroke. If you let go, you can do individual lines by just simply left clicking and releasing. And while you're doing this, you can also change perspective. So I can go here, and I can click and then drag, go here, click, and you have a lot of flexibility with this, right? Awesome. Now, when you're done drawing your sketch, you right click and you have a bone, or not a bone, you have a sketch in 3 dimensions. From here, you can turn this sketch into bones by pressing convert. Now, by default, when you press convert, it's going to turn every point into a single bone because it's fixed, and that's the number is 1. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. If I increase that number, you'll see these green dots along the strokes. Along the straight lines, those straight lines themselves are going to be bones. But along drawn curves, those can get subdivided into chains of bones. So I can say I want these subdivisions all to be 3 bones long, or I can have Blender itself do an adaptive subdivide and sort of figure out, based on the detail of the curve, how many bones should be there and where those bones joints should be located. And you have a threshold you can control here. And I could also use length. So I can just say, make all of my bones on these curves the same length. In this case, it's 1.5. I can make them larger if I want or smaller, really depending on how you want to do that. There's also an option in here for template, which is another it's another tutorial altogether. But basically, if you already have something rigged, you can use that rig as a template to fill in your strokes, and it's really, really awesome. But what I'm going to show you here is just hit length, that thing, or set my limit, and hit convert, and now it created the bones perfectly for me. That's neat and cool and awesome, but etch-a-ton is even more powerful than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control Z, get rid of those bones, and this little sketch I'm going to get rid of just by hitting X, and it's gone. You can, while you're working, you could also edit sketches as well. But alright, let's see here. This is a good perspective. Say we want to rig it, and this is the view we're going to rig it from. Well, what you can do is you can get that drawing, you can get the sketch to live inside of your 3D geometry, and you do that with snaps. So I turn on snap, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my snap element to volume, and that's going to choose the volume of the element I'm working on. Now, if I had this was made of multiple different, multiple separately linked vertices within my mesh, then I can actually enable this little consider objects as a whole when finding volume center. I can do that, but I don't really need to for this because it's one singular line. Now, what I have to do is simply just draw. You hold Control while you're doing it. And now when I hold Control, I'm going to draw my line. Now, let go of both Control and my left mouse button. Right click to finish the stroke. And how's that for awesome? And now, once I'm done with that, I can just go over here, and I could use my length. I can have it do adaptive. Adaptive is a little weird because I hand drew this, so I think there's more detail there. If I was using a tablet, it would probably be a lot smoother. So in this case, adaptive is not quite as good as just using length, which is fine. And I'll just hit convert, and my bones are there. Now when I tab back into object mode, my bones all live in the space I need them to. And if I control tab to pose mode, they look pretty, but I need to set the rig to deform. So if I hit rotate now, it's just going to rotate the bones. It's not deforming my mesh yet. So if I hit select my mesh, shift right click any of the bones in the armature, and hit Control P, make parent to armature, and use bone heat. Now when I rotate, it's deforming. Even cooler is that since this is set the way it is, I can turn on Auto IK, pull this out, and it'll do this and solve the bending all nicely for me using IK. And that's basically it. I've rigged this little tentacle thing very quickly, much faster than I would have been able to do by simply extruding the bones, and it's a lot more accurate because all the bones are guaranteed to be within my mesh. So that's a little burst of awesome for you there. That's bone sketching. It's going to be in Blender 249, and I'm Jason Van Gumster. Hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments.